Hi, I'm Jan from JB Crafts and I'm back today with another tutorial for you guys here at my channel on YouTube. So welcome, thank you for joining me today. And I wanted to show you this really pretty gift box that I've made. It's something that I wanted to put on the channel. It's a go-to for me, this. It's one that I've made quite often with the same dimensions, and it's got a really nice space in it for any kind of gift, really. You know, you can wrap in tissue paper inside if you wanted to. And then I've just incorporated, just for an extra layer of interest, a little bit of a shaker element on the front there. So I've dug out, it's quite an old die, this, from Crafter's Companion. I'll show you the products in a second or two when we get going. But it's a 6x6 design, this, with a reinforced lid, and I'll show you how to do that. It's really straightforward. It makes it much more substantial. And then I've gone sort of split level for I've gone 3 inches for the actual depth of the box, but just 1.5 inches for the lid. And then when we take that off, I've got a little bit of decoration inside. I've gone white for the main part of the box, and then I've chosen a nice shade of pink to complement the paper for the lid. So I wanted to show you how I've made this today, including that lovely shaker element on top, and you can do this in many different ways. So yeah, we'll get into the tutorial. So I'm going to pop this to one side and we'll get cracking with, first of all, making the actual box itself. And I've got 2 sheets of 12x12 cardstock for this one. So for this particular size of box, we need to start with a 12x12 sheet. If you want to reduce the dimensions, then obviously you can reduce the pieces that you start with. But I've actually got 3 inches, then a 6-inch, which is 9, and another 3 inches, which is 12. And then on the sides we've got the 6-inch across here, and then 1.5 inches doubled, which is the 3, and 1.5 inches doubled, which is the 3, which gives us our 12 inches. So that's what we're going to do. And I'm also going to use the Crafter's Companion scoreboard, which gives me the facility to score both the lid and the base and not have to worry about adjusting any sizes. That's one of the things I like about their scoreboard. So we're actually going to start off with exactly the same size card. These both measure 12 inches square. So I'm going to do the base first. So I'm just going to pop the pink to one side. I'm going to bring in my scoreboard here. Now, if you have the larger scoreboard, it works well for this, but I'm just going to use my A4 one so that I can fit this in camera shot. And what we're going to do, we want to make that 3-inch depth. So this 3 inches for the, let me just take the lid off for a second. So this part for the depth here, we want to make that 3 inches on each side. So how this system works, if you have this particular scoreboard, is we score the lid on the left hand side, and I always remember the L's, the lid on the left, and then the base is on the right hand side here. So at 3 inches, we're going to use the measurements towards the bottom of the scoreboard here for the base. So this is my 3-inch line, and the easiest way I find to do this is actually to flip it round. It also means I can get it in shot for you guys here now. So this is the base. This was originally the right hand side, and I can now use these measurements here. So I'm going to go along to my number 3, make sure that this is nice and flush against that edge, and I'm going to score top to bottom just a couple of times to get those fibres going on that side, and then rotate 90 degrees, and I'm going to keep doing that so that we've got all 4 sides scored the same. So rotate again and use the 3-inch line, and then we're going to do that 4th side the same, and then we'll actually do the folding and burnishing and cutting in a second or two. So that's my base. If these were both the same colour, I normally write a little B just in the corner here just to remind me, but because I'm working with 2 different colours, it's fairly obvious which one's which today. So I'm going to pop this back round the correct way now then, so that we've got it the right way up, and I'm going to work at the left hand side. Remember that left for lid. So again, we're going to stick against this left hand side here, and I'm going to score this time at 1.5 inches first, and then at 3 inches. So we're actually making a double score line here, a parallel line, and those are 1.5 inches apart. And then again, we're just going to repeat that. So I'm going to turn it. I'm going to score at 1.5 inches first, and then at 3 inches. And this is how you would make any reinforced lid. It's just going to double up those edges to make it a little bit more sturdy. So 1.5 and 3 inches. And I always tend to score a couple of times, so go a bit more lightly, but do it a couple of times to get a nice score line, just making sure that it's all lined up in the right place. Then at 1.5, and then again at 3. So that's all the scoring that we need to do today. I can remove that scoreboard now, pop that back down there, and my scoring tool out of the way. And then we'll work on the lid first. I don't know that you can see those lines on there now. I've actually got sets of 2 lines at either side, across the top and across the bottom, and you'll end up with a section with 4 smaller squares in each corner, and that's what we're going to end up working on. Now I prefer to fold mine first. I know some people cut first, but I like to fold it so that I can see where those lines are. So I'm using the bulk of the card to push against that score line, and I'm just going to burnish these in with my fingers for now. I don't want to risk cracking any of the card. So again, we've got one at that 1.5 inch line, and we've got a second one at the 3 inches. And then I'm going to turn it round and I'm going to do the same here. So we've got that 1.5 inch line, and just burnish it in with my fingers for now. When I come to seal the box, I'll add my bone folder in to give that a really nice finish. But at the moment, just that folding there is sufficient for me to see the cut lines. So once we've got all those in place, we need to do a little bit of cutting now. So again, see if we can see where I've folded those lines. You can just see that grid on there with those 2 sets of parallel lines. So you're going to start in one of the corners. I normally start in the bottom right because I'm right-handed, and then I'm going to rotate. So where you've got the 4 squares here, in fact, let me just grab my pencil and I will actually draw this in so that you can see what I'm going to do. I've got a score line here that I'm going to cut all the way down past the first score line to the second, and I'm going to repeat that on that 1.5 inch line as well, like so. And then we're going to cut away the 2 outside squares. So these 2 are going to be cut away completely. And then again, if I draw across the middle here on that first score line, we're actually going to cut this box away. So that's what it's going to look like when we've cut. And I tend to cut my score lines away. So on this side, I'm going to come just to the left of that score line and cut in a nice straight line up past the first score line and stop when I reach that second, so the line that we made at 3 inches. Then I'm going to do the same again here, but this time I'm going to cut to the right hand side. All right, so we're going to cut up there, straight up to that second score line, so that we've actually freed these 2 pieces. And then what I want to do is snip out that one completely. That one's waste, we don't need to keep that one. And then the second one, I'm just going to snip off that bottom square. So you'll end up with something that looks, oops, like so. So we've literally taken that sort of 3 squares away from the corner there. And then a little bit more trimming. I'm actually going to cut on this outside piece, just the first 1.5 inches, the tiniest little sliver, and stop when I get to that first score line. I'm also going to do that on this edge that we freed up here, and it is literally about 1/8 of an inch, and just take that edge off. And then we want to just notch into here to make ourselves a little glue tab. So I'm going to take both of these off at about 1/4 of an inch and just angle them up to that cut line. So when we look at it now, you can see I've just taken a very slight piece off here, a very slight piece off that side, and then I've notched into that design. Now I'm just going to take my eraser there because I can just see a little bit of pencil mark where I actually drew it on for you guys. I'm going to get rid of that so that it doesn't show on the outside. And then what I do is I rotate 90 degrees, and we're going to repeat that on all 4 sides. So again, I'm going to cut straight up this one to that second line. I'm going to cut straight up this one to that second line. And then I'm going to do this all in one movement. I'm going to take that tiny little wedge to the corner there and get rid of that piece. I'm going to take the square off here. I'm going to notch this one just very, very slightly. And I'll explain where I've done that when we fold it all together. And then I tend to fold the box away from it here so that I can do the tabs. And just notch those in to make those little glue tabs there. Just get that straight. There we go. So that's the next one. So you can see we've got one here. Then I've taken this one out. I'm going to rotate again. And there is a little bit of repetition with this. Any of you that's made boxes will understand how this works. And once we've got this one on the channel, then these measurements can be modified then to make pretty much any size of this, from a 6-inch square downwards, or it could be made into a rectangular box. Once you see how, if you've not seen the reinforced sides before, it's the same principle regardless of whatever size box you're making. So again, fold that piece out of the way and just notch into that little tab there. So that's side number 3. We've just got one more of those to do. So I've done 1, 2, 3. We just need to rotate again. And I prefer to do my boxes like this. I like to do sort of each corner and sort of work my way round rather than doing opposite sides. So again, straight up. I'm going to just notch that one slightly while I'm cutting that edge off. Take that square off. Notch this edge. And you just go into that first score line on this one. And then fold that to one side so that we can take out the pieces on the tabs. So that's all 4 sides complete on our lid. And we'll just get rid of all those pieces. And this is what we're actually left with now. We've got that sections cut into, which we're going to use to fold. And then these pieces on the edge will be our reinforced. The sides will actually be 2 pieces of cardstock thick, plus our matting and layering. So it does become very, very sturdy. So again, I'm just going to swap those over because we've got a little bit of folding and cutting. This one's a bit more straightforward. It's just got the one score line. So we're just going to do the folding and burnishing on here. And again, on the opposite sides and this one. And then again, we're going to do that cutting, but it's a much simpler, straightforward cut this time. So you end up with squares again in each of the 4 corners, and that's what we're going to work on. So I am going to cut this time just up one side, and I'm cutting away the score line, and then I'm just going to take probably about a 1/2 inch of a wedge out this time on that piece that's joined the way that we've just released. I'm going to leave this edge straight, take it out of there, then I'm going to turn, and again we're going to repeat. So again, I'm cutting away that score line. We can always tidy that up afterwards, and then just about a 1/2 inch this time, take that wedge out so you can see where we've got so far. And then I'm going to rotate again, and we'll do those last 2 corners. And again, with all the mats and layers that we're going to put on here, it does make it a really nice sturdy box. So if you're wanting to put something, you know, that's got a little bit more weight to it as a gift, maybe a nice jar candle or something like that, it's nice and strong. So the last one there, just up to the score line, take that corner off, and then that one's good to go. Now I prefer to do some of my decorating while the box pieces are flat. I just find it easier to stick things down when the box sections are flat. So we'll start with the base, and what we want to do is create some panels to fit this here, and these measure just under the 3x6. Because we did it on the box base side, it's just reduced it a slight little bit, but you're looking roughly at 3x6 inches. So what I've done is I've chosen paper, and I actually went for an old collection here. This is actually an old Sarah signature collection from Crafter's Companion, one of my favourite colour palettes. This, it was called Garden of Love, and it's probably about 3 or 4 years old now. It's got some really pretty prints in there with some gold foiling as well in it on some of them. So I've actually chosen some of the papers out of this one, and I have the 12x12 pad as well. So there's a mixture of the larger designs and the smaller ones. So that's what I'm going to be using to decorate, along with some gold mirror card. So I wanted to pull the gold out of that paper with some mirror card. So the first thing I've done then is make my mats and layers for the sides. And I've chosen one of the papers that's just got that lovely gold foil dot on it, and then my mirror card there. All right, and these are going to make the panels to fit on this side here. So I've just gone slightly smaller. I've gone down to 5 5/8 for my mat layer by 2 7/8, and then the paper is 5.5 by 2 3/4. And we're going to map these together, and because I'm working on the mirror card, I'm not going to use my all-purpose glue today. I do like a wet glue so that I can wriggle everything into place, but the solvent-based glue can damage your mirror card. So I've just come back to my white glue today, and I'm just going to put a tiny amount like so. And what it allows me to do is position this. I can literally drop it down onto the mirror card, and then I can literally wriggle that into a position that I'm happy with. If you get any on here, it will just rub off. And once I've got that in position, I can then secure that in place. There we go. And I've done that 4 times with those same measurements. So we've now got our pieces that are going to come onto the sides of the box there like so. Now again, I often work cardstock to cardstock with my wet glue, but because we're going to be constructing this, because it's a 3D item, I want that glue to set quite quickly. So I'm actually going to bring in my tape runner for the purpose of this today. So again, we're just going to add some tape along those panels and get those stuck down. I find this much easier to do while the box is actually flat. So again, bearing in mind that this is the top of the box, if there is any direction to your paper, then just make sure that you've got it going the right way. So it wants to be the top edge here, and this is the bottom here. So all I've done with mine, any that's got any darker area on the paper, I've put that towards the bottom edge. And then we're going to rotate, and then I'm going to add the same on here. So I've just put 2 or 3 rows of adhesive on these, and again I've got a slightly darker area here, so I'm just going to fit that to the bottom. There's not really a direction on this at all, but if you are using a paper that's directional, just be aware of that. And many times I've actually done mine working from this edge and then realised when I've stood the box up that the paper was going the wrong way. So again, we're going to do the 3rd one, and then this is actually ready to pop together. So again, I'm going to put that darker edge towards the bottom there and just centre those in that panel, ready to construct that box. Last one there. Now I did actually run out of my sheet of 12x12 paper that I was using. I did put a piece inside the other box, but I'd actually run out of the design, so I'm going to leave this one blank. I'll show you the sample again at the end of the video. So if you want to add paper, it's just a case of flipping it over, and again I would go with that 5, maybe about 5 3/4 to sit in the centre of here. So what I'm going to do now then is I'm just going to work on these tabs, and again I'm going to stay with the tape runner. If I was doing this for my own benefit and like I did with the sample, then I would use my all-purpose glue again, because this dries really strong, but obviously it takes a couple of minutes for it to actually cure and set. So just for the purpose of the video, I'm going to go with a dry glue that's going to be easier to stick and stay in place. So I'm going to add my tape runner to all 4 of those tabs that we created, and then we can get this one put together, and that's our base pretty much sorted. So there we go. So all I'm going to do now then, just like we have with any box, is wrap this around, and I'm going to use that nice straight edge here. We didn't notch this edge, line it up, and I know then that that's given me a proper right angle for that corner. So I'm just going to burnish that down so that that glue's grabbed nice and quickly. Just pop the lid on this one so that it doesn't dry. And then we're going to work our way around. So again, the next one in, line up the corners, just make sure that that top edge is running nice and straight, and then give it a little burnish just to get all that glue to secure. Work your way around. Again, same again, bring up the corner angle. If you've got this top edge nice and straight, you know that you've got that true angle. And because we did alternate corners all the way around the box, it's actually pushed one of these tabs now into each side. So again, this is all a way of strengthening your boxes. So because we've got one of those pieces folded into each side, it's created that extra strength on each side for us. So that's our base pretty much finished. Okay, as I say, the sample, all I did was just drop a piece of pattern paper into the center there. So we'll put that to one side for now, and then I'm going to bring that lid back in, and we're going to work on this one now. So for the center, I've created a nice matte layer in the same. I've got a gold mirror card layer and then a patterned layer. So this one's from the 12 by 12 sheet, and my gold layer is 5 7/8 square, and my paper layer is 5 3/4 square, and this one's going to sit flat onto the top of the box. So again, we'll stay with that same tape runner here, and this way everything, I know everything's dry then to move on. I would be continuing at this point if I was making this in my own time with my all-purpose glue again. But just because I want this to be set so that I can start folding it, I'm going to use that tape runner. So that one's going to go in the center. And then again, we just want elements for these thinner edges here. I'm not too worried about, it's basically going to be this part that we're decorating. So I'm just going to move those outside edges. So I want 4 pieces for here. Okay, and again, I've got those at the ready. So we've got that same gold layer, which is 5 7/8 by 1 3/8. So that's going to be my matte layer. And then again, I've taken some of the matching paper from the 6-inch pad, and this one is 5 3/4 by 1 3/4. So again, just because I want that to have that little bit of movement so that I can wriggle it into place, I'm going to bring my wet glue into play again here. And I'm just going to pop this one onto the matte layer. So drop it down in position where you think it needs to go. And then because it's the wet glue, you've just got those sort of few seconds or so to wriggle it into place. If any of the glue squeezes out, it's a nice easy clean up on there. Now I'll let that one dry for a second, and I've got 3 more of those already prepared. So we've got our 4 sides there. So again, I'm going to come back to the tape runner, and I'm going to add my tape along both of those long edges there, and then we're going to start. And again, just be aware that your lid's now facing, so this will be the bottom edge. So if you've got any kind of direction again on here, we're going to pop that facing that down, that folded edge. so away from the top of the box. So we've got one there, and then I'm going to go with that one at the front, I think, so we can do the sides. Again, just popping these in place with that tape runner. It's a nice strong glue in there. My paper has got a direction, but it's not that obvious on some of the pieces. So the ones that don't look too much of an issue, it doesn't really matter which way around it goes. The ones that had the foliage on, I've made sure that's going to point into the right direction. So this one's going to come on this side here. And then we've just got that last one. So again, this one I'm going to have the leaves pointing up towards the panel on the top there. And we've just got that last piece to pop on here. Now all my papers I have actually edged with a little bit of my pink tulip ink. I love inking the edges of the card and the paper. So yeah, I've just popped a little bit of that on all of the edges of the pattern paper, just to sort of draw the eye into that design on there. And that one's going to go on the front panel there, like so. So that's good to go. So let's just pop that lid back on that one again for a second. And then we need to do a little bit of construction with this particular box. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on the tabs first, just like we did with the base. So I'm going to add some of my tape runner again on those 4 tabs. Again, if you prefer to do the wet glue in your own time, that's absolutely fine. And then last one there. And that's the first bit we're going to work on. So again, just like I did with the base, we're going to bring these up as a right angle and get them nicely stuck together. And then just work our way around with these, joining up those edges, giving it a little squeeze. And then I will burnish these when I've got all 4 of them in place. So that's the first step in our sort of lid section. So all I'm going to do now again is go inside with my bone folder, and where I've pressed those tabs down, just give it a nice burnish on each side to make sure that that glue has adhered nicely on the tabs there. There we go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to fold these extra pieces, and this is what I meant by reinforcing. We've now got 2 layers of cardstock, a matte layer and a paper layer, so we've got a really nice finish on here. So I'm going to fold them out so that I can get my glue on them. This time I am going to come back in with the all-purpose glue. This will add a little bit more strength, and it's going to go inside the box there, so I know that this is going to sort of stick. We can burnish it in place. So start with one of the sides, add that glue, and then with this was the one that we just took a slight bit off the edge, and I said I'd come back to that just to give space for both of these to fit inside. That's why I just took that sort of fraction off the edge. So I'm going to tip it on its side. I'm going to get in with my bone folder again and just spread that glue out nicely. Give it some pressure, and I'm also going to burnish that fold properly now that we've got it in place. So you can see there, just adding a little bit of pressure, you're going to get that to stick. And as that glue dries, it dries rock solid, the all-purpose. Okay, you see that nice neat edge on there now. And then I tend to work on opposite sides, so I'm going to come to that next one and add my glue again. And again, we're going to wrap this one inside and just give it a nice press. Add a little bit of pressure with the bone folder again. Spread the glue out so that it's all connected with the side underneath. Give that edge a nice burnish, and you can see that that's side number 2 in place there. So we've got two really nice strong sides. It also hides all the tabs that we folded in as well, so it's a nice way of sort of presenting the inside of your box as well. And then just work your way around the remaining two sides there and do the same again. So we're going to fold that one in, apply a little bit of pressure. I just find that the bone folder allows me to get right into that edge there, secure that fold, spread that glue out, and you get a really nice bond in there then. So I'm just going to make sure that they're all stuck down, and then we've just got that final side to do. So we've got our glue on there, and last one goes in. So just by trimming away those tiny little pieces on the corner has allowed all those to fold in without any bulk in this corner here. So if you hadn't have trimmed the edges, sometimes you end up with a little bit of a conflict in the corner. So it's just worth taking away that fraction at the beginning, and it allows it all to fold in there nicely. So there we go. I think they're all good now. So nicely stuck down. And we've got a really strong box lid that will now fit over the top of our base perfectly, like so. So if you just wanted to make the box as is, that's pretty much as far as we need to go. You've got a really nice gift box there. You can add any decoration on the top of it that you wish. It may just be a sentiment. You may want to wrap a bow around it, any way of decorating the box. But we're going to take this one a step further by adding on a shaker element to the top. So what I've done is I've created a second set of mats and layers for this. So we're actually going to put one on top that's just a fraction smaller here. So this one, I've got a matte layer in the gold that's 5 1/8 of an inch square, and a piece of pattern paper that's 5 inches square. And this is going to sit on the top, but it will be elevated with some foam tape to create that space to put our shaker in. And what I chose for my shaker element was a really old set. I love this set of dies when it was launched at Crafters Companion, and they were actually brought out as abstract shape dies. And I've chosen the heart, which is called Endless Love, and in here you get the metal work, and you also get some little stamps that complement. Now I've used a different greeting on mine, but I do want to take off the metal work here. So again, I'll just pop those to one side for a second, and I want this element here. So we've got no external cutting edge. So this is going to cut into my piece of card, but it's going to cut out all those heart shapes, which is going to make the basis of my shaker window. So what we need to do is pop this through the Gemini. And I have got a piece of mirror card and a piece of paper. So I'll show you the plate combination that I'm going to use. And I'm just going to eyeball that this is around about the centre. So I want to look here that they're about the same distance, and about here and here. And I'm quite happy with that. And then I'm going to pop my tape across the inside so it doesn't snag any of the outside of the design. So make sure that that's stuck nicely in the middle. And then as far as my plates are concerned, just grab these from behind me. I have got a set of Gemini Junior plates, mixture of plates here. I've got a white one, I've got a clear one, and I've got my usual shims. But I am also going to bring in my metal shim. So because we're actually cutting through two layers in effect here, I'm going to cut against my metal shim here. And because I'm using my original Gemini, my plates are going to go through this way. So I'm going to have the die facing like that. And then I'm going to put the rest of my plates on top here. And then just forgive me for a second while I pop behind me to my Gemini. And you can hear that going now. And pass those through the Gemini to get that nice clean cut through both of those layers. So if we take those away now, oops, there we go, get rid of those and get rid of those. And that metal shimmer's just added a little bit more pressure to allow this to cut all the way through, and you can see perfectly there where that's gone through the whole set of cardstock. So gently I'm just going to release where that die was, and you get lots of freebies with this as well. So you've got all these little pieces that come out of the center here that you can add. You could pop them back inside as part of the shaker elements if you wished. I've used 1 or 2 of them to decorate with. You can keep these to use, you know, for sort of future designs. So this is going to be our aperture that we're going to then lift on the top of here. So the first thing I need to do with this is pop some acetate behind it. So I've cut a piece of acetate slightly smaller than this. So I've gone for about 4 3/4 of an inch. You can see it just comes up smaller than the matte layer that we've got. And I've added some of my very narrow red line tape just onto the outside of it. And I'm also going to bring in my dot runner as well. I'm going to add some of that to the back of the actual design. So what we want to do is flip this over. I am going to remove the liner from that acetate, and then I'm just going to add some dots behind where we die cut. That one doesn't want to come away. There we go. Yeah, just to make sure that this part in the center is stuck down as well, I am going to add a few dots behind there. So I'll just pop that to one side for a second. And I just need a little bit of scrap there, put underneath. And wherever we've got the internal part of that design, I'm just going to add some of that dot runner on there to make sure that the whole thing is secured to the back of the acetate. So all that internal workings there, and then I'll put a little bit around the edge. There we go. Get rid of that piece from underneath. And then what I want to do now is invert my acetate, and then I'm just pop this, just line it up. It's a little bit smaller than the square, so it doesn't matter if it's not perfectly straight as long as it's covering that aperture. And then I'm going to bring the bone folder back in and just see if you can see the difference between the tape. Can you see how it's gone that sort of almost grey colour? So just give it a burnish with your burnishing tool. Make sure you've got rid of all the air bubbles, and you've got a really nice secure fix then with that acetate onto the red line tape. I'm also going to do the same with the dots. So again, just over all the dots, and you'll see that they become much darker when they've made contact with that acetate. So all that dot runner there is doing its job and making sure that we've got everything nice and secure. Last thing that we want is any of those shaker pieces escaping. Missed a tiny little bit there, but I think we'll get away with that. And now we've got that lovely sort of window sheet behind there ready to receive the rest of the design. So next thing on the back of here is going to be our shaker foam. So I've just got some, it's about, I would say probably 3mm, my foam. It's just enough to give me the room that I need to add my shaker pieces in. And again, I'm going to pop this all the way around the outside first of all. So I'm just going to cover those edges to support this. So this is actually going to be the framework, and I'm going to close it in slightly. You could just put this round the edge, but then all the shaker pieces tend to sort of land at the bottom and you can't see them anymore. So I am going to break off some of that area around the heart as well. So that bit's going to be my support for round the edge. And then I'm just going to take a length of tape off here. And what we're going to do is actually sort of break down some of that gap. So sort of, it's almost like building a little dam. And it means that the shaker pieces are not going to get lost behind the design here. So I'm going to go down either side of the heart like so. Okay, and then I'm going to pop a little bit at the top here to stop them coming up. I may as well use the tape that I've got out now. So we'll pop a little bit in there, and then this bit we'll snip in half and just pop across here. I need a tiny bit more in there just to stop them escaping round that corner, like so. Okay, so it may be that the odd one or two get through, but the bulk of them will now be behind my design rather than hidden in the corners. So the next job is to get rid of all the liner off the tape. So again, just to release all those off here. And then we're going to add, now on my sample, I actually picked up some nice pink sequins to go as my shaker fill. And when I had a look at it, I thought, actually, part of me wishes that I'd used the gold to pick out the gold foiling off the design. So what I thought I'd do is, for this one that we're making together on the tutorial, I'm going to pop some gold shaker pieces in so that we've got a comparison, and then you can decide, you know, which is your preference. Or if you're working in a completely different colour palette, then, you know, you could add in any colour. I sometimes do a mixture of sequins. I'll do like a little sequin mix and put a few of each colour in. And I have them in different shapes and all sorts. I've got a whole drawer full. But yeah, I thought just for the purpose of this one, I'm going to go with some gold this time. So I've got everything ready here. This one eventually will be inverted onto the top of here. So what I'm going to do is, for the one that I made originally, you can see here that this one's got those lovely pink sequins in there. But this time I'm actually going to take some gold ones and I'm going to put those in. So I've got them all filed in these little tiny containers here that I can never get in and out of. And all I'm going to do is I use a little plastic spoon so that they don't stick. And I'm just going to slot some into that space here. Should be enough there. Get those fastened up so that I don't end up with them everywhere. And then once we're happy with those in the centre there, I am going to add a little bit of my wet glue around this foam tape, just for insurance, because I don't want any of those sequins to escape. So whereas the foam tape is sticky, I always add a little bit of wet glue, because that wet glue will seep into the fibres of your paper and provide a really nice secure bond. So again, all the way around where I've put the tape, that little bit of extra insurance. If you have a direction on your paper, whichever way you want it to go, again, I think I'm going to have mine like that. So we'll make sure that these are all in the centre there. And then all I'm going to do is just eyeball and get this one so that I've got a nice equal border pretty much all the way around, like so. And then give that a nice press round all that tape that I've just added. And then Jan's had to learn patience at this point, because you're tempted to just pick it up and start shaking it at this point. But what I am going to do is just add my blocks on there and let that glue do its job just for a second while we come back to the rest of the embellishments that I've got ready to decorate the top of the box with. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to find out of the hearts that cut here, I want one that I can use within the decoration itself, and I'm just going to add a little bit of my ink around the edge of it here, and I want to use that as an embellishment. And then I've also got some bits and pieces in here, so I've used one of my heart dies to create a nice little pink embellishment, and again I'd got one of the hearts that was left from the original one here. And then I've also got a really tiny little bow die out of my stash, which cuts the most gorgeous little filigree bow. And I've just done that in a piece of the gold mirror card to match the matting and layering. So we're going to need to use those. I am going to need a foam pad or two. And then I've also got my sentiment. So the sentiment came, and again, I've had these a really long time. Let me just take that out of the packet so that it's not catching the light. These are a visible image sets called Go-To Words. Again, I've had them quite a few years, but I love the fonts on these. I love that lead in, lead out. And I actually chose the congratulations for this one. It was just a nice length to fit over the top of the box. And what I've done is I've stamped that out onto a scrap of white card. I've got a really narrow gold border on it just to link it in with the rest of the design, and a couple of those hearts again that was from the die cut piece that we cut the shaker piece out with. So we've got all our bits and pieces at the ready to decorate with, and then I'm going to add some, I'll show you where I've added the gems as well. So I'm hoping that that's had a chance to do its job. Just make sure again that we're not going to be too brutal with it yet. And what I am going to do now that I'm working on the whole thing is pop it all back together. In fact, that was the one from the original design. Not that there's any difference other than the piece in the bottom, but we'll go with the one we've just made there. So that all fits together really snug, really nice, sturdy design there. And then what I want to do is I'm going to bring this across, sort of, I made this the same width as the piece here, which was 5 1/8 across. And I'm just going to bring it sort of towards the bottom there. And I've put on the back of here, because I'm going across the different surfaces, I've just popped some red line tape on here so that I know I'm going to get a nice bond with that layer underneath. So again, all I'm going to do is bring in my ruler here, and we're just going to trot this down. So I want it to come about there-ish, and I'm going to line it up with one side and then make sure that it's nice and straight with my ruler. Yep, I'm happy with that there, and give that a press into place. Okay, and then I'm going to use the heart that we pulled out here with a little bit of the wet glue again, because this sticks nicely onto the acetate, and I just thought that added a bit more interest. Because the sequins tend to fall down to the bottom, that one's just going to pop in there to add a little bit more interest in that gap. We've got our tiny little bow there, which we're going to put again a little bit of wet glue on the back of it there. Doesn't need a lot. And then I always tap off, if I'm doing something this delicate, I always tap off any excess glue, and that's just going to sit on the top of the heart like so. Just hold that down for a second. And then the last one here is just going to come towards the bottom, but because again we've got a difference in height, I am going to bring in just one of my foam pads here, and instead of putting it on the back of the embellishment, I'm just going to tuck it underneath the edge there. And again, pop some wet glue on here, and then I'm going to pop wet glue on the top section. Should have been on that side, but we're okay. And then this one is just going to snuggle nicely into that corner, and that foam pad's going to support that side of the embellishment there. Okay, so we should be okay to give it a shake now. That glue should have set nicely on that shaker part, and you can just see we've got those lovely gold ones. I think I like the gold in there actually, so you'll have to let me know what you think about that. So again, let's put the original one back together and I'll show you them side by side. And then, as always, you know, the bling appeared. I've just got some little gold beads here, and I've just added 5 of them across that design again, just so that your eye follows across the design. So we've got 2 very similar. The only thing that I've really changed is the shaker pieces inside. So my original sample had the pink ones in, and then the one I've just made had the gold in, so I think I actually prefer the gold in there, so I'm not sure. So you'll have to let me know in the comments below which one you prefer. Do you like the pink shaker pieces? Do you like the gold shaker pieces? Does it not really make any difference? It is only cosmetic, but I think personally I like the contrast of the gold with the gold foiling on the rest of the design. So yeah, really nice sturdy design there, as I say, with the I'll pop that one to one side because this has got the extra piece in the base there. But yeah, lots of room there to put some goodies in, maybe wrap them in a nice tissue paper, and you've got that nice solid little box, really sturdy, for you to pop a decent gift in there. So hope you've enjoyed that one. As I say, I wanted to pop it on the channel because it's something that I make quite often. I go to this particular size and shape, not always with the shaker element on top, but it is a nice go-to design. So yeah, let me know if you've enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up. Thank you for all the subscriptions to the channel. We've just gone through the 1,500 subscribers in less than 3 months, and I am absolutely blown away by that number. Absolutely blown away. I never expected it to grow this quickly. So yeah, thank you to each and every one of you that have subscribed. And if you haven't had a chance to do that yet, please consider it. It does help with the channel. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where it's going to go in the future. I've got loads more ideas to bring to you. So yeah, I will leave you for now with this one, with the gift box with the little shaker system in there, and I'll see you back here very soon. Bye bye now.